Welcome again to this session. My name is Nadereh Chamlou. I'm a senior advisor at the World Bank, and I want to wish you a very warm welcome for this session in this afternoon, which is not only going to be a very exciting session, but given the panel distributions that I have seen this morning, this panel is definitely one of the most prettiest one that you will see during this event. I am delighted and very honored to be moderating this session. For the last 10 years, I've worked quite a bit on women's entrepreneurship, and I think we have come a very long way to have a session like this in this mainstream conference of this stature. 10, 15 years ago, people thought of microfinance and still sometimes think about microfinance when it comes to women's entrepreneurship. But increasingly, we see that actually women entrepreneurs are in all scales, in all sectors, in all advanced, technically advanced and very sophisticated businesses. In terms of statistics, and I don't want to bore you with that, about 17 to 19% of businesses in this region, and in this region I mean the Middle East and North Africa region, are actually owned by a woman. And when you take into account, it's sort of like 1 out of every 6 or 7 businesses are actually owned by a woman. This is not a bad number, and certainly when you look at the size of these businesses, they're mostly in the medium to large scale businesses. So by and large, this is a very important, and to some Western audiences, a very well-kept secret of this region. When I look at the new generation of women who are coming out of universities, who are now sort of like in their mid-20s, I see a great deal of dynamism, I see a great deal of ideas and energy, and a great deal of sort of like optimism, and also great leadership. And I think that this whole area of women's entrepreneurship is a very important and key area for people who are interested in funding startups, who are interested in scaling up startups, or even interested in portfolio management or in portfolio investments. With that, I would like to introduce you to this wonderful and very esteemed group of panelists that I am honored to have here. I will go by the list, by the order that is given to, or at least that has been given to me by the organizers to introduce them. We want to talk about first about some of the challenges, at least 1 or 2 of the challenges that are commonly faced by women in this region, and then we can come to talk about a little bit about the some of the practical, ongoing, or even planned activities. I am delighted to introduce to you Mona AbuSulayman, who is the co-founder of Glowwork, and currently she is the Secretary General of the Al-Walid bin Talal Foundation. Mona, wherever I go, I run into the name, the Al-Walid bin Talal Foundation. Tell me what you're doing. What is it that you are? What challenges you're facing, both, from many different perspectives, personally as well as business-wise, as well as what the foundation is interested in doing. And please give me a warm welcome to Mona.
So first of all, thank you so much for the introduction. I left Al-Walid bin Talal Foundation about a year ago. I think there must have been a small mistake in this, but I can talk about 2 things. I have my own consulting for CSR, and as well as my experience from the Al-Walid Foundation. So first of all, I just want everybody to look around this hall. Everybody just take a look, back, forth, next to you, there's a large number of women. Did anybody attend an earlier session here or in other rooms? Was it the same? Were there that many women? I mean, we can count the guys. I'm basically, I think, on 2 hands, 10 people. And that's part of the challenges that we have. The minute we just start discussing about women, it's a hot trend. Everybody loves to talk about it. Everybody wants to get higher on the competitive index of the World Economic Forum and, World Bank. But the minute it comes to actual nitty-gritty, somehow the men disappear. And only the diehard real advocates of female empowerment remain. And so we want to give a round of applause to every single guy who's here. And then we're going to take your commitments right afterwards. So let me talk a little bit more about the challenges that we look at. When we were in the foundation, we worked at 68 countries around the world. The problem with, and I'm going to talk mostly about the GCC, is that a lot of the GCC countries are very rich. And therefore, what we were doing, whether with Oxfam, with other entrepreneurial organizations, to help upgrade the poverty alleviation through female empowerment, through industries and business opportunities, doesn't apply. And then you have also the culture. So you have 2 different things that are colliding. A culture where motherhood is really valued, and it just happens to be the same time, you usually become a mother at the same time that other organizations are trying to make you an entrepreneur or to join the workforce. So that's a really large block, an obstacle that women have to overcome in the right way. I'm not saying not have kids, but in the right way. And the other thing is that access to finance. Women are unable to actually get the funding that they need to grow from the usually home-based businesses that they have. And so you start at home and you're using the resources that you have, but the minute that you really want, and this is the majority of women, the minute that you want to actually become a bigger entity or become more professional, and you have to put a lot of investment, you don't have the know-how and you don't have the finances to allow you to hire the people who have the know-how. So these are the 2 things that I think that are problematic in the ecosystem, and I'm sure everybody else will have more things to talk about.
Thank you, Mona. My next guest is Imad sorry, I forgot it. It's Imad Benmoussa. He's the president of Coca-Cola Middle East. Imad, you have a very global view, particularly from a multinational perspective, and you work across all of the different countries in MENA. Can you give us a few of your insights into what the challenges are and how your company is handling those challenges and mitigating those challenges?
Sure. Thank you, Nadereh.
Again, please give me a warm welcome to Imad.
And thank you for having me here with you. Mona left me no other alternative than to say that I'm a diehard believer in women entrepreneurship. And I think one of the things that is very crucial to see, and it's a positive trend, is that the gender gap is really narrowing over the last couple of years. In fact, UAE is one of the few countries where women literacy is actually higher than men's literacy. So I think we're going on the right path. I was just looking at my Twitter account a couple of days ago and saw His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum, ruler of Dubai, pushing really hard the agenda regarding stronger presence of women in decision-making positions, because I think that's really where we need that leadership happening. As a Coca-Cola company, we do have a role to play, and internally, one of the key people priorities is women development in terms of hiring and advancing. 5 years ago, we set a Women Leadership Council, actually a group of very talented women leaders within the company set this council, the Women Leadership Council, sponsored by our chairman and CEO, Muhtar Kent. And the strategic objective of this council is really to accelerate, and the word is really important, accelerating the global recruitment, development, and advancement of women. And that's, for us, it's something that we take very seriously, and we're making very good progress. Now, where I do have a lot of passion to talk to you about today is really the global initiative that we launched 2 years ago called 5 by 20. And 5 by 20 stands for empowering 5 million women, 5 million women by the year 2020. That's a very ambitious goal. And it's really around developing and implementing programs that enable women entrepreneurs to break down the barriers that you were talking about. Now, there is a set of unique social and economic barriers that stand between women entrepreneurs and economic success. And as Mona mentioned, and we agree from the experience we've had so far, business skills training is a clear hurdle. Financial access to financial assets and solutions is a hurdle. But at the same time, mentorship and peer network exchange. And these are things sometimes that we take for granted as we develop ourselves and grow our businesses and our careers. But these are things that we see in the market that are lacking from that perspective. If we harness the scale and the reach of Coca-Cola Company, 5 by 20 can give millions of women opportunities to build their communities and also benefit the business, because we want to do that across the supply chain of the Coca-Cola Company. So it's actually a win-win. I think also I would like to mention an example where we also had to come up with some creative solution in terms of barriers regarding the MENA Scholars, which is a joint program initiated by the Coca-Cola Company and U.S. Department of State as part of our PNB initiatives. And it's a summer entrepreneurship program where we give equal chances to both gender to join in for an entrepreneurial summer camp in the U.S., which is in 3 states. We had a 40% female representation. Now, that's not perfect, but it took us some extra effort to really make sure that we get the 40. We actually aimed for 50, but it was a substantial achievement from that perspective. And the students basically submit their ideas in terms of how they can benefit their communities and their countries, and we basically take some of them and really take them through this entrepreneurship training program. So it's really about training and building the skills. And as a commitment from the company in terms of helping the society where we do business, it was really around inspiring the next generation of entrepreneurs and leaders, both men and women. So I think that was a very good example that I wanted to share with you.
Thank you very much. This sounds very exciting. Just a follow-up question before I move to the other speakers. Is your approach in the Middle East, because I assume this is 5 million globally, worldwide.
Correct.
So is your approach in the Middle East the same as in other regions, or is it different, or how do you differentiate between the social and economic factors in each of the regions? Is there anything?
I mean, part of the program we can talk a little bit later about, for instance, Egypt. One of the programs regarding empowering women will be around helping them to set up retail kiosks where they can sell all the fast-moving consumer goods. So that's one of the examples we give. We have fruit growers in Brazil. We have distribution centers in South Africa. So we're trying to adapt to the local needs of the market. And again, making sure that that creates a self-sustained ecosystem that will benefit both the community, the entrepreneurs, in this case the women, as well as the business of Coca-Cola.
Well, thank you very much. I think I want to move now to our next speaker. We were talking about creating an ecosystem or a community, and I think that this morning when I was walking around the exhibit hall, I ran into Khalifa Fund, and I think that this is a good way. So please welcome Najla Al-Midfa, who is the senior manager for entrepreneurship development of Khalifa Fund for Enterprise Development. Could you tell us a little bit about how you promote entrepreneurship and particularly women's entrepreneurship?
Sure, definitely. Before I start, let me say welcome to our token gentleman on the, usually it's a woman who's the minority. So, although I believe in gender equity and gender equality, today I actually got a quick, fast lane pass as I was waiting for registration. So in some cases, actually, it helps to have the bias.
That's true. It's happened to me too.
Anyway, I'll move on to your question. So the Khalifa Fund was set up 5 years ago as an independent agency of government of Abu Dhabi. It's a 2 billion dirham fund, and it's meant to address one of the challenges that I guess both Imad and Mona brought up in their comments, which is access to finance. So what we do is we give interest-free loans to entrepreneurs, both men and women. But I think what's interesting is, since this is a women's panel, I'll focus on the women aspect. And in terms of our applications, actually 35 to 40% of our applications are women. In terms of approved projects, that percentage actually goes down and drops to about 25%. So we're attracting the women through the door, but something's happening along the way, right? So I don't think it's access to finance. I think that is a challenge, but I don't think it's specific to women. So I think that's a challenge that all entrepreneurs in the region face, just like managing cash flows, just like the bureaucratic startup process and, so on, mentoring, for instance. I think this is not necessarily specific to women. I think entrepreneurs in the region face those challenges. I think one thing, if you'd ask me, that it holds back women in this region that is specific to women, I would say it's the socio-cultural constraints. You mentioned, I guess, what was the number, Nadereh, that you mentioned in terms of, is it 19%?
It's about between 17 to 19%.
Yes, the question is, why is that number so low? And I think it falls into two buckets when I say there's socio-cultural constraints. One part is something that, again, is not specific to this region, but as women, you are playing also typically playing the primary caregiver role at home. So you need to work really hard to strike a work-family balance. And any entrepreneur in this room will tell you entrepreneurship is a 24/7 game, right? It's not a 9-to-5 job. And when you've got the additional responsibility of bringing up kids, of managing a household, it's just not easy. It's not easy to do, especially if you don't have your family's support. So it's so important to have that, whether it's your husband, your brother, your father, your mother, it's so important to have that support. The second aspect is, I don't want to say confidence. I don't think confidence is the right word, but it's something to do with maybe tradition, where some women in the region are still a little shy about presenting themselves at, say, conferences or networking in mixed gatherings. Things that are important when it comes to running a business, right? Sales, marketing, PR, these are really important factors. That's core to any business. And if you're not comfortable doing that, if you're going to, for instance, maybe one would prefer to send a brother to do that on your behalf, that person will never be able to do justice to the business because they're just not as passionate about it as you are as the entrepreneur. So I would say these are the two parts when I say the socio-cultural part. In terms of what Khalifa Fund is doing, so this, Mona, maybe you're familiar with this, we're part of the Aspen Network. One of the quotes that Martin Luther King said is that a change does not roll in on the wheels of inevitability. So we can't just say, it's going to change over time. We do actually need to take concrete steps to make those changes. And those changes can't happen later on in life. They need to be embedded when women are very young. So one thing that we do is we work very closely with universities and with schools. We have a partnership with NGOs, which I don't know if Sulaf is here, but we've got a very close partnership with them. So we hold business plan competitions, innovation camps, and that includes mentoring within that. So you have girls as young as 16 going out there pitching their ideas at a very early age. And you may ask, so how does that impact culture? But what we find is that a lot of the parents will see their daughters up on stage and actually very proud that the feedback that we get from the parents is extremely supportive of the work we're doing. So that's one part. And the second part is that we try to meet the entrepreneurs halfway, right? So we do realize that some of the constraints the women face, and we will help them in every way possible. So when they come in with their business plan, they have a business counselor who will help work on the business idea with them. They go through a training course with Khalifa Fund, and they're provided with post-funding support to market their product or their service. But when I say we meet them halfway, it means, yes, that's what we'll provide, but it also means that they need to play their part. We need to see from them, we need to see commitment. They need to sit at the table. If you've seen Sheryl Sandberg's TED Talk, she says sit at the table. Every woman entrepreneur will have to come and pitch her business to the investment committee at Khalifa Fund. She can't send a representative to pitch it on her behalf. She herself needs to be there. So we meet them halfway on that.
Well, thank you very much. In fact, you're right. We particularly, I mean, I think women in general, but particularly women from this region are sort of like brought up not to brag about themselves, not to talk about themselves, because we are taught very often from early on that, you know, if you're good, people will notice it and they will, you know, they will recognize what you're doing. But I think in the world of business, you continuously need to talk about your business. Yeah. You need to talk about how great it is, what a great idea it is. And I think there perhaps the issue of confidence that you were mentioning, this is perhaps one of the areas that one could hone in. Well, I'm now coming to my next and last speaker, a real entrepreneur, because I think that it's important for us to hear where the shoe is pinching when you are walking that road to entrepreneurship. And with that, please join me to welcome Doa'a Essa Abdul Wahab from Bahrain. She is the co-founder of A2D storage, as well as a salad boutique restaurant. So two very, very diverse lines of business. And I'm interested to know what you faced when you were starting this idea and what you face still in terms of challenges.
Thank you, Nadereh. First of all, it's my first session, so excuse me if I try to do my best. And thank you, my colleagues are here, are supporting the entrepreneurs, so I'll try to get benefits afterwards from them. With regards to the challenges, I believe that it all depends on the woman herself. It's not about the world is not taking the woman seriously. It's the woman who's not taking herself seriously. It's not about the family. All of us has their social commitment. It's all about time management. It's about delegation. And most of the female, they said, because we are not inherited some money to start our businesses, rather than we don't have the ability to take loans. It's, I think it's all about women. If she wants to start her business, I'm sure she can start her business. And maybe...
Bravo, yes.
And I think it's... I agree with Najla, it's about the family support, but the family, if find the woman serious about her dream, I'm sure that they will support her. And if we talk about the regulations and the rules, and I think it's not supporting, not all the rules and regulations are supporting women, maybe worldwide, but we still we have to work hard to make the decision makers, but the serious rules and regulation that makes the woman entrepreneur succeed in their ideas. I agree also with Mona regarding the access to capital, because most of, as I said, most of the entrepreneurs, they also depends on their husbands, on their family, and even the banking system is not encouraging the woman, because the banking system, if they are going to give loans, they give according to collateral-based or name-based, which is a big problem for us. But I came from a very educated family, but not a rich family. But now I have two businesses that they are doing very good, and in 2 years, alhamdulillah, we succeed. And the challenges, I think it's also about trying to delegate. We are women, we always like to do everything by ourselves. We like to take care of our families, to take care of our businesses. So let's delegate. If we have people can offer us help, let's use this help. And it's a chance also for other women to get benefits and other jobs from us as entrepreneurs. I believe also that we have to be careful when we come to the education system. I was discussing this with you. The education system is enhancing, bringing up employees rather than employers. And this is one of the main issues, I think, in Middle East, or at least in my country. But regardless, in my country, they are open. they encourage male and female. It has nothing to do with female and gender when it comes to entrepreneurship. It's, they are supporting with whatever rules and regulation we have, and they listening. Bahrain started to listening to the entrepreneurship to put the right rules, the right support. We have Tamkeen that's supporting the entrepreneurs financially and also from the advisory point of view. But let's be honest, we still in the first stage of doing this.
Thank you.
I also wanted to add something. It's very important that each country actually asks, who is my entrepreneur? What age are they? What age do they want to be? So it's not about I want kids to come out of college and make them entrepreneurs, but what age does my society have for turning from either a stay-at-home mom or a college student or an employee into an entrepreneur? What is the age for that society? And the reason that they're becoming an entrepreneur, do they love risk? Is it mughamara? There's people who are serial entrepreneurs. Or are they people who just can't find a job? Or are they people who don't want to have a boss, or they can't, or they need to work from home because of the balance? So once you understand the socioeconomic situation for the majority of your entrepreneurs, then you can develop an ecosystem that fits those people. So for example, in Saudi Arabia, we had a huge push for both employment and entrepreneurship for very young kids, people who are just out of college. And we face the problem because a lot of the women and a lot of women who do have a college degree actually do work. Around 70% MENA region will end up working sometime. They will leave work because of family commitments. In the Arab world, mostly in the GCC, we have double the number of kids per woman. So around the world is around 2.1. We have 4. That's the average. And so you have double the burden. And when you look at, so we're going to look at women because this is what our subject is about today. You're looking at this woman who starts her marriage around 23, 24, gets kids until around 32. That's when she usually has all her kids. What is the right time that you need to make sure you actually enter and give her the opportunity to become an entrepreneur? And if you do give her the opportunity to be an entrepreneur, how many times does our society allow you to fail? I'm not even talking about bankruptcy laws, which are very difficult to navigate. And if you are bankrupt, then you can't get up again. But around the world, people fail 3 to 5 times before. You're an exception. MashaAllah, tabarakallah. People fail 3 to 5 times before they actually succeed. Do we have an ecosystem that can support both female or male entrepreneurs 3 to 5 times when they start their businesses? You know, the family comes in and they're very embarrassed. And if you borrowed money from all your friends and family, which is what most entrepreneurs do, there's no way they're going to give you again. And you can't have the access to finance, which is important. I know you said it's not that important, but I think it's one of the biggest hurdles we have. So we like to talk about things. And this is why I like the Coca-Cola model. You were telling us in the speaker's room how it's really about the supply chain. So 5 million jobs that can actually directly benefit Coca-Cola bottom line, but also actually create jobs that weren't there. So if we look at all these things, you have to actually have the government get involved. And not get involved at the just strategy level, which is what we were talking about, but actually go down to the segment, go down on the ground. And I haven't seen that yet. I know Bahrain, you guys have been trying. It seems like with the Khalifa fund. But what is happening outside of Abu Dhabi, for example? Is for the, how many people apply to it? 8,000. MashaAllah, that's a huge number.
I think that this is how we can maybe you already took the next step into thinking about what are some of the solutions and some of the practical aspects. Go ahead and then maybe you can. Would you like to then add to what I say?
Absolutely. I think what I mentioned is important. The complexity of the world we live in, it is becoming very challenging for a single company to make a sustainable difference. I think you mentioned government. I would like to expose here the idea of the golden triangle. What we need is literally private sector, companies like Coca-Cola, but at the same time government and NGOs that can really work together to crack it, because it's really about creating that sustainable difference in the community where we operate, but it has to have a business sense. It has to be something that is sustainable. It has to create the ecosystem around it to make it self-funding, so that create a multiplier effect for women entrepreneurs to convince other women entrepreneurs to come to the party. Nothing is more convincing than a woman entrepreneur telling her whole story and encouraging others to join.
Well, here I think that I mean the role of large scale or multinationals is very important. When you come in and say we want to have 5 million, and maybe you inspire other companies to come in and say we want to have also 5 million, or maybe not as many or so. I think if the demand side from the private sector is very high, I think that would push the government to also kind of step to the front and do things like suggestions that Mona was making. What are your experiences in that front? I mean, the interaction between the private sector and the government, and how policies are being made.
I'll echo Imad's thoughts, because it's really... Sorry, I'll echo Imad's thoughts. It's really not one key player at the end of the day that, that can help the entrepreneurs. It's an entire ecosystem centered around the entrepreneur, right? So if you look at the key components, there's the government, which will come up with hopefully the right legislation, the policies to support entrepreneurship. You've got the private sector like Coca-Cola that will come up with programs that will provide volunteers and mentors to these entrepreneurs. You've got academia, the universities that need to instill the spirit of entrepreneurship in their courses, in their majors and their minors. And then, of course, as you said, the NGO or the civic society as well, that plays a role as well. And I've actually got a very beautiful example from Khalifa Fund that we did for women. And it was a program, an entrepreneurship program that's still actually ongoing. It's a 6-month program. It's funded by a grant from City Foundation. So that's the private sector, if you like, City Group. Then you've got University of Dubai that came up with the content for the course. You had Sharjah Business Women Councils, which is, if you like, the NGO part of it, that actually selected the female entrepreneurs to take part in this course. You had the private sector, which was providing the instructors. So you had instructors from various private sector companies coming and talking about different topics to the students. And at the end of the day, you have Khalifa Fund, who's there to fund the businesses that come out, the feasible businesses that come out of this course. So when you have that entire ecosystem not working in silos individually, not as individual building blocks, but actually collaborating, then you've got a sustainable model that works in the end.
If you can just pass I'm being given signs that we have to wrap up soon, but I want to hear one last comment from Mona. I mean, as women business owners, I meant Doa'a, sorry. As women business owners, don't you go to the government or to the private sector and says, this is how far we can come, and this is how we want you to help us? Are you involved, or are people like you involved in going to the government and demanding the government to actually do things for them?
Actually,
or the banks or others, yes.
I do, and I did this with Tamkeen, as I mentioned, that Bahrain government has Bahrain government has now Temkeen. Temkeen is working on supporting the entrepreneurs and setting their businesses by financing them and by giving them support, even advisory support. And through my journey in establishing my two businesses, I faced a lot of difficulties. The problem is there is no how to follow. And maybe I did some mistake and I wasted some of my money, some of my time, because I don't know how to do it and I don't have someone to guide me. But all these have been given to them to the government, and they start to do. Even Temkeen, sometimes they call the entrepreneurs to sit in a session for brainstorming and before they do the yearly strategies. And maybe the final word I can tell is that when it comes to entrepreneurship, it's about taking risk, and it's about being responsible for the risk, regardless if you are a male or female. And if you are taking risk, and you should be responsible for it, and inshallah you will succeed. And it's all about taking risk, being responsible, and you need parents' blessing and a bit of luck.
Regarding the taking risk, I just wanted to discuss or talk about an initiative that we're doing in Saudi Arabia. It's called Dullani As-Souk. I'm wearing the brooch for it today. And this is basically allowing home-based entrepreneurs, mostly women, to come into malls that are very active, that have a lot of foot traffic, and they present their services or products for 3 months. And basically, this is about, it would have cost them around 90,000 riyals for that amount of time. We only get 1,500 riyal, like $300 for the 3 months from them, to allow them to test their products on real consumers for a long period of time, and to also allow them to increase their database of clients, because you're getting all these new people who are coming through. And this is, when I was talking about allowing people to fail, this is when you're talking about risk, it is mitigating the risk and allowing people to fail with small financial burden. And again, it's Hokair, which is the mall owners, this is their initiative, but we have a lot of NGOs who are feeder programs giving us people who are trained. Our problem is that we're not able to give them finance afterwards. So into شوية, we should collaborate, inshallah.
Well, I wish we had more time to go into some questions from the floor. Unfortunately, I think the time for this session is coming to an end. I just wanted to maybe highlight a few things. One is that this discussion reminds me very much of some of the earlier discussions, in the sense that I think the road of entrepreneurship is filled with lots of pebbles and potholes and everything. And a woman entrepreneur is not necessarily as much different than a male entrepreneur. And it takes a different personality to get through this and not to be dissuaded by failure to continue. I think what Doa'a, you mentioned is like, if the woman believes in herself and thinks that she has a great idea, she's going to make it through those competitions that you were mentioning. She's probably going to sit in front of the bank until she's given a loan, and she probably will make it into your supply chain and be one of the 5 million women that you're trying to promote. But I think that in all, this is a sector that can no longer be ignored in the Middle East. I think this is a very important source for growth of both innovation in terms of the new ideas that women are coming to, in terms of job creation, because we need so many jobs for so many new entrants, and also for distinguishing this region. And I think the women are there. They are now at the table. They are ready to roll up their sleeves. They have already rolled up their sleeves before, but I think now in a much more important way. And I think some of the people that you see on this panel, and with the support of the men that we have on this issue, I think that we are going to, the next 10 years are going to be very different than, and perhaps much faster than the previous 10 years. And with that, I want to thank you very much for coming to this session, and I hope that you will invite us back again and again and invite more women to such events like this. Thank you very much.
Thank you.